There are days where it's like we don't have enough C-arms, so it's kind of like juggling. Okay, this is going to go to this room, and so is going to be done with this C-arm in just a minute, so we'll push it into this room as soon as we get done. And I like to, try to keep everybody informed, like, hey, I know that you're waiting on a C-arm. We're almost done with it in this room. I will bring it to you as soon as I can get it there.
Clock in, scrub up, and join us behind the red line. You're listening to First Case, a perioperative podcast bringing you exciting interviews, engaging discussions, and innovative solutions that are changing the way patients receive surgical care. Each episode, we talk to frontline staff, perioperative leadership, and nursing entrepreneurs from across the country as they share their stories, experience, and expertise on the industry we love. From the back table to the boardroom, from wheels in to wheels out, we tackle the real-life issues affecting the OR. Whether you're tuning in for surgical service education or inspiration, we're glad you're here. And now, it's time to roll back and start the first case.
On this week's episode of First Case, we're speaking with April Hughes from Radiology. As we spend this season exploring how we collaborate with other departments, radiology is a department that we cannot overlook. Radiology is present in most of our ORs every single day. But how do they know when they're needed? And how do they work with us to support perioperative care? April is going to help us understand all things radiology today. So go hang up your lead, and we'll be right back with April Hughes.
Hi, I'm Chris Blevins.
And I'm Melanie Perry.
From the studios of Healthcare HQ, you're listening to First Case.
Joining us now is April Hughes, a radiologic technologist from Birmingham, Alabama. April, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to get to talk to you because I work in ortho and I work in spine, and we are calling radiology all the time. And I will admit that I am guilty of forgetting to call you guys when we roll into the room like I'm supposed to. And then the doc's like, hey, we need an x-ray. And I'm like, oh, hold on just a minute. Let me see if they're busy. Like it wasn't my fault that we forgot to call you guys. You're like, yeah, you're blaming us. I know how this goes. But without radiology, there are plenty of cases that we would not be able to do. So today, we are going to explore how radiology supports perioperative care and really discuss how collaboration and clear communication between radiology and the OR team contributes to the efficiency that we so desperately want and to the good patient care that we all want to provide. But first, everyone needs to get to know you better. So before we get started, why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself to our audience?
So I have been a radiologic technologist for over 18 years now. I've worked in the same system the entire time, but 2 different hospitals within that system. And the last 12 years, I have actually worked in surgery specifically. So I kind of have a little bit of knowledge about, working in the ER and working on the floors and stuff like that. But like my true love is working in the OR, and I don't see myself doing anything else. So,
well, yes, I agree. The OR is absolutely the best place to be. And you and I have the same opinion. I would much rather be in the OR than anywhere else. And, and a lot of us, we think about the OR and we focus on what's going on inside the room, what's going on inside our department. But radiology actually plays a very crucial role long before a patient has surgery and even after a patient has had their procedure, along with being present with us in the operating room as well. So can we talk a little bit about everything that radiology is doing within their own department, not just what we see when we see them in the OR?
We play a pretty crucial role in a lot of things. You come in for a mammogram, and the only way that they can see that you have cancer is, from radiology. So you're going to get a mammogram, you're going to get an ultrasound. If you come in for a cough, they're going to get a chest x-ray. So then that diagnoses your pneumonia. If you have a car wreck, you're going to come into the ER, and we're going to be, taking x-rays of your, hopefully not, but maybe your broken bones, which then you will be going to surgery, and we'll be there in surgery, helping the orthopedic surgeons put you back together.
So you really do kind of have a hand in all of it. If you think about it, our patients see you pre-op, then you're there with us intra-op, and then you're the ones following up post-op to make sure that the plates and pins and screws that we put in are all doing what they're supposed to do, or that we got all of the cancer out, or that we did all the things that we set out to do, or staging things to make sure that the next step in the procedure is what needs to be done as well. So radiology really does have a huge hand in our success in surgery. Mostly what comes to mind for me, if a patient is doing something preoperative, getting ready for surgery, we've got our CT scans, our MRIs, even x-rays and ultrasounds. And you mentioned mammograms. Is there anything else that I'm leaving out when it comes to imaging that patients might need before they have surgery?
We also have nuclear medicine. So that is also used in cancer treatment to kind of map out where, the tumor is, any lymph nodes that might be.
Any lymph nodes that might be suspicious that we might need to be examining and getting rid of, right?
Yes.
Let me go back. Yeah, so we're tracking down those suspicious lymph nodes and making sure, along with everything else, that we are being thorough. And then intraoperatively, of course, I see C-arms, in the operating room all the time. We're taking those intraoperative x-rays. But there's also other things that are going on too, like our hybrid ORs, right? Or things that are going on maybe even in cath lab that are involving radiology. What else are we doing in the OR besides just rolling in a C-arm?
Well, it's like you said, we do have hybrid rooms. There's a technology now where you can do intraoperative MRI, which I think is pretty cool.
It's really cool.
Not gotten the chance to see it for myself, but I do know that we do have techs who are their MRI techs, and they run the intraoperative MRI machines.
That's really cool.
I know they do some stuff with neurology. I think that's the main thing that they use it for, is neurosurgery.
Yeah, so neurosurgeons are making use of those hybrid ORs. And I have a friend who works in CVOR, and she's brought up the hybrid ORs and how cool those ORs are. And I've not gotten to be in one either or see them. And I'm sitting here wondering, okay, so we're using an MRI in the operating room. What about all the things that are magnetic and all of the, how does that work?
Well, I know that they have special equipment specifically for that, but also know that as far as the room goes, the MRI magnet is actually attached to the ceiling, and it slides in. They do the scan, and they slide it back out. And while the scanner is in the field, you've got this line around the OR room where everything has to be kind of pushed back behind that line.
They have their perimeter, and they have their space where it is safe to use that in the operating room, even though we have all this equipment that we have. That's interesting, because I've not been in a hybrid OR or known anything about the safety parts of it, but that's where my brain goes. I'm like, how can we do this? How is it safe? Okay, well, that's interesting. And so if we think, we've talked pre-op, intra-op, and then post-operatively, I think it's pretty straightforward. Radiology is doing those follow-up x-rays, those follow-up scans, right? Making sure that we did in surgery what it was we said we were going to do, right?
Right.
Okay. But one of the big issues that we have coordinating two different departments is actually that. It's the coordinating and making sure that we have radiology present in the OR when we need them to be, and that we have maybe even, I know that in times past, I have had to do the juggling of, we only have this many C-arms, but we have this many cases. And how are we going to get C-arms to all of the rooms that have all these cases? So I want to talk about that collaboration and that communication. So first, how does radiology get the information for the surgery schedule and the patients that are going to be needing services from radiology during their cases?
Okay, so we generally have a schedule that we follow each day. Me personally, I like to print it out and make a list of all the cases that are going to need C-arms for that day. Because with me being lead, I have to kind of keep up with that kind of stuff. And so we have the cases so we kind of can anticipate who's going to need us when. And I follow throughout the day just to make sure, because cases move around, they change times, all that sort of stuff. So we do that. And generally, when the patient hits the room, the circulator will either call radiology. The last place I worked at, we had a pager that they would page and say, hey, we're in the room with so-and-so. Once we get the call or the page, we go ahead and bring the C-arm in. But it's like you said, there are days where it's like we don't have enough C-arms. So it's kind of like juggling. Okay, this is going to go to this room and so-and-so is going to be done with this C-arm in just a minute. So we'll push it into this room as soon as we get done. And I like to, try to keep everybody informed. Like, hey, I know that you're waiting on a C-arm. We're almost done with it in this room. I will bring it to you as soon as I can get it there. And there are times where I call the board to let them know too, like, hey, we're running short on C-arms. So it's going to be a second. I do know that they need one. We'll get it there as fast as we can. And 9 times out of 10, it just kind of works out. It's not very often that I have to track down a surgeon and say, hey, we don't have a C-arm for your case right now. So thankfully.
Yeah, right. But you're touching on something that's so important is you're communicating. You are going back to the board, to maybe the team leader or the surgeon themselves and telling them what's going on. And how important do you think that communication is for relieving maybe frustration or stress when it comes to availability of equipment?
I think it's very important. I know what it's like to be left in the dark, not really knowing whether somebody's actually doing what I've asked them to do or not. So I always like to let everybody know, like, I know that you need this and I'm doing the best I can and I promise I will deliver. So I definitely think it kind of helps with everything to actually communicate with whoever it is that needs to be in the communication loop.
Sure. So on the flip side then, how often does the OR communicate with you when maybe a case is canceled or when things have been moved around or if a case has been delayed? Do you get that communication in radiology or is it up to you to track that information down?
I track that information down and, I do it with our schedule. Like I said, I write out the schedule and then throughout the day, I'm constantly checking the board. Okay, this case was canceled. This case moved from 4 o'clock to 2 o'clock, and it's going to go into this room instead of this one. So I'm always on top of it just to make sure that, again, if we run out of C-arms, I know who I need to go talk to and arrange things.
So would it be helpful then if there was a direct line of communication from the OR to radiology with some of those schedule changes and with some of the just variability that we have in our day to help with your awareness of what's going on?
Absolutely. I think that it would definitely be helpful because there are times where I'm in a case that's 3 or 4 hours and I'm not able to check the board to see, what else is going on, whether cases have moved or anything like that. So it's definitely helpful to have somebody either call me or call our department and say, hey, we've just added on this case and it's going to go in 30 minutes or something like that, just so we can be prepared.
Definitely. And I think being able to be prepared and being able to make sure that you have the C-arms or everything else that you need, or even being able to help track down imaging if they're looking for imaging for a patient. It really helps with that preparation if you're communicated with.
Yes.
So then I think we've hit on a big challenge, the communication aspect of it from OR to radiology. But are there other common challenges between our two departments that make it maybe difficult sometimes for you to be every place you need to be?
To be honest, I don't think so. I like to think about it from the other side. I know that y'all have a ton going on each patient, and, we'll have 60 plus patients a day.
Yeah.
And you have so many things that you've got to keep up with as, a circulator. The board is constantly taking phone calls. They're calling for patients. They have all these things going on. So I try to take that into account, especially when the circulator forgets to call. I understand that we all have a lot of things going on. So I try not to worry too much about that, which is why I try to stay on top of the schedule. Just to see what things are going and try to anticipate everything.
No, I get that. And I think we all, to some degree, do that. We take it upon ourselves just to make sure that we have all the information, we have everything at our fingertips so that we are prepared, so that we can do the best job that we can do, and we're not dependent upon somebody else giving us a phone call or whatnot. But I think, too, that it's helpful to have that understanding between our departments of how much we need each other, so that we do know that, hey, oh yeah, let's not forget about radiology. They need to know this too. Or in my case, maybe let's not forget to call them when we roll into the room. I literally just did that yesterday. I'm not gonna lie. Totally forgot. And I'm like, oh, shoot.
I know.
It's just, it just happens.
Right.
But unfortunately, it just happens that attitude, it doesn't just, yes, we forgot, but it also does mean a delay. It means we're waiting on radiology to get into the room. Our patient's laying there asleep even longer as we're waiting for them to come in. And so it does have a trickle down effect if we do something that we see that us on the circulating side see as, oh, I just forgot to call them. Well, okay, yeah, but it is bigger. It's bigger than just, I just forgot to make a phone call, because then your group is affected because you didn't know we were in the room yet.
Right.
So I can see it having a bigger effect than just forgetting to make a phone call. So this is more about like understanding each other's roles and some more mutual understanding type stuff, because that's what we were just talking about. So I'm curious, if you could pick, what do you wish that surgical teams better understood about radiology departments' work?
I would say that people need to kind of realize how important we are, how vital we are to taking care of patients, and not just in the OR. But like I said, I've worked at 2 different hospitals within the same system. And one of them, it was very much a them versus us, OR versus radiology type attitude. There wasn't a lot of teamwork or collaboration or anything like that. And I'm sure part of it has to do with us kind of being the redheaded stepchildren of the hospital. But we are needed. At that same hospital, the team lead for orthopedics, which were in those cases 99% of the time, there was a day where one of the surgeons was ordering lunch for everybody because it was a super busy day, and he just wanted to kind of like thank everybody for all their hard work. So he was like, just go around and get everybody's orders. And that team lead came into my case and asked the scrub what they wanted. They asked the circulator what they wanted, the CRNA what they wanted. And he looked right at me and turned around and walked out.
No, he did not.
And other times the surgeons would order food or what have you, and it would be in the break room, and the surgeons would be like, oh yeah, go ahead and get you some when you get a chance. And then we would get back there and people from the ortho team would be like, you're not on ortho, you can't have any of that.
Excuse me. No. I mean, I guess it would be one thing if people from like the department who hadn't been working in the OR, with us all day long were like coming up from another, I don't know if I'm trying to get this out correctly and not be insulting, but if everybody from across the hospital was trying to come into the break room and eat lunch, it'd be one thing. But the people in the room right there doing the cases all day long, they are just as much a part of the case as anybody else in that room. And to say that, oh my gosh, makes me embarrassed.
It's like that constantly. So I had that experience, and then I came to my current position where I am in a different OR, and it's the exact opposite.
Good, I'm glad.
We all work together. There is no radiology versus OR pretty much ever. I feel much more appreciated anytime. Again, I'm bringing up
You know what? We all work in healthcare, and food is a direct line to us. We like our food.
So anytime, food is ordered or what have you, they're like, hey, it's peri-op week. Like this week is peri-op week. And they're like, you know what? I know you're part of radiology, but you're also part of the OR. So why don't you go get food? Or, hey, there's donuts at the desk. Or some of the orthopedic surgeons give us gifts.
I know it's something we see it as something as like simple as food, quote unquote. But it's something bigger than that. It's the inclusion and the gesture that speaks to the fact that you are part of the team and that you are part of making this surgery successful and part of making our surgical schedule successful. And recognizing your role in that and recognizing you're part of it is very important. And I think it gets displayed by the team in the inclusion in the break room, inclusion with the lunch and the food. But the mindset is what's so valuable and what's so important. And the fact that they recognize your role. And we couldn't do our cases. I mean, I did spine all day yesterday. We weren't going to be getting any of that done if we did not have our C-arm person in the room all day, right? Yeah.
Right. And it's like you said, I feel like it just makes a difference, when everybody is included. I'm always in the room. If you need help moving the patient, if you, need something done, if I need to go run to another room to get some gloves or, whatever it is, I'm always willing, and many of us are, to do the things that we're not required to do, but we like to do because we like to have that teamwork. And I don't know, there's just a huge difference between one experience that I've had and the other. And I left the previous experience after 4 years.
Wow, yeah.
And I've been doing this for almost 9.
You've doubled your time at the better place. I see that. Right. But teamwork. And recognizing the role that all of us have. Our roles are different, for sure. We have different responsibilities, different reasons that we are there in the operating room if you just look at it in terms of the job that we're doing. But the bigger picture is that we are all there to ensure that our patient has a safe surgical experience. And so recognizing the role that we all play is one reason we're having this season and having these conversations and understanding that we need to see beyond the red line and see all of the different departments that come together to make sure that we can do the surgeries that we want to be doing. So we're coming to a close, but I want to talk about something else first. And this is just something that I know gets under your skin. And just like our scrub tech friends who have the same frustration, I mentioned your title at the beginning of the episode. But, a lot of times people, they don't know what all that is. They're, that's the x-ray tech. Oh, it's, whatever. Go get the x-ray tech. But there is a difference between being a technician and a technologist, and you are a radiologic technologist. And so I want to give you a minute to talk about that, to really help educate everyone who's listening about the title that you have and what that means.
So a technician is somebody who learns on the job. It's not really something that we see anymore, to be honest. I've only known of one technician my entire career, and it was at a very small hospital that I was a student tech at. It was just one person, and she had learned on the job. So the fact that we go to school and we get a degree in this is why people tend to harp on the technician versus technologist. Like, give us some credit for going to school
absolutely.
And really learning all the details, not just what views you need for a chest x-ray. We learn the hows and whys and so much more by going to school. So I personally don't get offended by it necessarily, but I know a lot of people who get really hot.
For sure.
About it.
And I think I think there's value in helping people recognize that you have gone to school, you've gotten a degree, and that you have studied more than just, you said, than just the how-to basics of taking an x-ray. You've learned all the ins and outs of it and gotten that degree. And so recognizing that and helping to educate other people within healthcare, what your title is, just like we do frequently with our surgical technologists and, our scrub techs. But because it gets shortened to tech, I think that's why we a lot of times get people thinking it stands for technician. And I think that's probably what feeds into it. But I wanted to give you the chance to explain that because, I don't know how long it was before I knew that it was technologist and not technician either. So, just helping people understand and helping educate is good. But so we are coming to a close, finishing up our conversation. Is there anything else that you want OR staff to know about radiology or about collaborating or teamwork with the radiology department before we go?
The biggest thing would be communication. I would say we definitely can take better care of our patients by communicating with each other, and not just one-sided. So
just like I want people to be educated on your title and the fact that it's a technologist and recognizing your education and your training and your commitment to your profession. I think it's also important that we have these conversations like this to learn more about what radiology does, to learn more about your role, and to really recognize that it is bigger than just those of us in the department behind the red line being in the OR, because so many departments come together to make surgery successful. And learning what radiology does and learning your role in it really helps us see how much we desperately need you guys and how important it is that we have good teamwork and good communication. And obviously, like our season says, good collaboration between our departments, because we want to provide safe surgical care and we need each other to be able to do that. So April, thank you for helping us see through the eyes of the radiology department and understand more about your role in surgery. I appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it.
That was April Hughes, radiologic technologist from Birmingham, Alabama. And today's conversation really highlighted the importance of collaborating between different departments to bring about good surgical care. There's a lot of things that radiology does before our patients ever even come to the OR. But without the job that radiology does, we could not do our job. We need those preoperative x-rays, that preoperative imaging. We need radiology present in the operating room so that we can have real-time data as we are maybe fixing a spine or doing a joint or even removing cancer. So we need them there. And then post-operatively in the OR, we don't see our patients post-operatively, but radiology does. And they are following up to make sure that the things that we have done have worked and that the patient maybe is doing another step in their care, another phase in their care, or making sure their bones have set, or various things that radiology is doing that we don't ever see. So understanding their role and seeing the part that radiology plays helps us get the bigger picture of what the full picture of surgical care looks like, and seeing that it takes more than just a few of us to make safe surgical care happen for our patients. That's going to do it for this week's episode. On behalf of Chris, myself, and our whole team, thanks for listening to this week's episode of First Case.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of First Case. As a reminder, you can help support us by subscribing to First Case on your favorite podcast app or by downloading the smartphone app on iPhone or Android. Simply search for First Case in the App Store or Google Play. The best thing about downloading the smartphone app is that you can access bonus content for certain episodes and view episodes in certain categories, like articles on the go and vendor spotlights. Are you following us on LinkedIn or Facebook yet? If you are and you love an episode or post, then let your social network know about it. Like, comment, or share our posts along with your thoughts and keep the conversation going. If you have any topics or guests that you would like to recommend for a future episode, just send us an email to info@firstcasemedia.com. We look forward to hearing from you.